When the facts bend reality, this is beyond plausible.
That sound you just heard? That wasn't wood breaking. It was the sound of a promise snapping in two. For decades, the town of Millhaven whispered about the old Miller farm, about the family that vanished without a trace one autumn night. They left behind a full dinner table, still warm, and a single, terrible question hanging in the air. The official story was simple. They packed up and left. But the ground beneath that house told a different tale. A tale written in the cold, damp soil and the faint, coppery scent that still lingers after all these years. And it's a tale that begins not with a disappearance, but with a discovery. The discovery of what was really buried in the dark. This isn't a ghost story. It's a story about the lie my father told me, the woman I loved who helped him tell it, and the price of an inheritance that was never meant to be mine. The backstory begins with sun-dappled shots of a charming, slightly worn colonial house in upstate New York. John, 32, and Sarah, 30, are laughing as they paint a room together. The air in that room was thick with the scent of fresh paint and the promise of a new beginning. We were so focused on the future, we never smelled the rot hiding in the foundation. My name is John Miller. 6 months ago, my world was simple. I was a high school history teacher in Ohio, engaged to the most incredible woman, Sarah. Then, the call came. My estranged father, Robert Miller, a stern and distant man I hadn't seen in 10 years, had died suddenly. And in his will, he left me everything. Not just his savings, but the house itself, a legacy I never asked for, waiting in a silence thick with the past. His house. Sarah's eyes lit with possibility, while mine saw only the dust and decay. She glimpsed our future in those peeling walls and soaring ceilings. I smelled the rot beneath the polish, felt the damp chill seeping from the stone. Her optimism was a stark contrast to the heavy, watchful silence that already filled the space. "It's a fresh start, John," she murmured, her voice edged with a zeal I'd never known. A gift. She persuaded me to abandon my career, to relocate clear across the country. The air in our new home carried the sharp scent of sawdust and something faintly metallic, like old copper. Then she plunged into the renovations with a ferocious energy. It was as if this house had kindled a dormant fire within her. Her fervor wasn't inspiring. It felt consuming, a silent hunger that left the rooms feeling colder in her wake. My father and I were never close. After my mother died when I was 12, he just closed off completely. The house became his sanctuary, especially that study. He'd spend hours locked inside with one absolute rule: never disturb him. Now, it was all mine, or so I thought. In the study, my fingers traced the grain of the old oak desk until they found a seam that shouldn't be there. A faint click, and a hidden compartment yawned open, releasing a stale, papery scent laced with something metallic. The air in the room grew dense and still, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The first discovery waited in the study. A bundle of letters, bound with faded ribbon. Each envelope bore his father's name in a looping, feminine script that whispered of secrets. They were all from a woman named Eleanor, spanning 3 decades of correspondence. 30 years of hidden words now lay exposed, their weight settling in the stale air. The final letter arrived just 2 weeks before Robert's death, its postmark a grim countdown. The ink bled with desperate urgency. "Robert, my love, we can't keep pretending," it continued. "I'm coming to the house." The words hanging in the stale air like a threat. The closing sentence sealed their fate. "We have to tell John the truth." John cornered Sarah in the kitchen, the letters clenched in his fist like evidence. His voice was low, urgent. "Who is Eleanor? Did you know about this?" Sarah wiped her hand slowly, a flicker of panic tightening her expression. "Your father had a secret girlfriend?" "John, it's sad, but it's not a mystery." The air grew heavy with the scent of old paper and something metallic. The house itself seemed to be the source of her obsession, with Sarah fixated entirely on the sealed attic above. The hatch was not just closed, it was painted shut, as if someone had deliberately tried to erase its existence. Yet she would insist, her voice tight with a strange urgency, that they simply needed the space for insulation. The excuse hung in the air, thin and unconvincing, as the house held its breath around the secret it kept locked away. I kept telling myself it was just an attic, but every time I approached with the crowbar, she'd find some urgent reason to pull me away. A plumbing emergency would erupt, or the realtor would call about the Ohio house at the most suspicious moments. The air grew heavy with the scent of dust and something faintly metallic, like old copper pennies. Each interruption felt deliberate, as if the house itself conspired to keep that door sealed shut. John awoke to a faint, persistent scraping from above. He found Sarah's side of the bed empty, the sheets cool to the touch. At the foot of the attic access, she stood frozen, staring upward with a vacant, unnerving expression. Startled by his voice, she forced a smile too quickly, her words hanging in the heavy air. "Just listening to the mice." The tension between us was palpable, thick in the stale air. Then, I discovered the photograph tucked inside a volume on inheritance law. It showed my father, young, standing beside a woman who wasn't my mother. A cold dread settled in my stomach as I stared at their unfamiliar faces, and standing with them, a girl of about 10. On the back, in my father's handwriting, Eleanor and our Sarah. Sunshine, 1998. John's breath hitched. The room's air grew thick and stale, carrying the faint scent of old paper and something metallic. Our Sarah, 1998. A primal dread took hold, his fingers going numb against the photograph's cold, sticky surface. Sarah would have been 10 in 1998. My fiancée, the woman I'd loved for 5 years. She wasn't from Portland. The air in the half-packed living room grew thick with the scent of old paper and dust. John's voice didn't just tremble. It frayed at the edges, raw with a betrayal that felt physical. "You lied to me," he whispered, the words hanging in the stagnant air like a verdict. Every familiar corner of the house now seemed to hold a secret, a truth he was never meant to find. Every single day, John. What a beautiful house. What a fresh start. You were guiding me here. Why? Sarah's voice, now defeated, cracked with a rage that had curdled into grief. He was my father too, John. The words hung in the air, thick with the scent of old wood and dust. John could only manage a stunned, "What? A moat?" as the floor seemed to tilt beneath him. "Half," Sarah whispered, the word a cold, final truth settling into the room. "Half-sister. My father and your mother, Eleanor, theirs was a lifetime of stolen moments. He provided for us in secret, a hidden stream of support that sustained our lives. And he made me a promise. This house would one day be mine." He promised. Then he altered his will, bequeathing everything to you, his legitimate heir. I only sought what was rightfully mine. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone, thick and metallic. "My fiancée, my sister," the words echoed, a sticky, suffocating dread coiling in my chest. My breath hitched, the world dissolving into a vortex of betrayal. The inheritance was a trap, and I was the bait. But the coldest realization cut through the shock. If Sarah knew about the will, then my father died suddenly. John. "How did he die, Sarah?" "The doctor said it was a heart attack." "Was it?" Sarah stared, her silence more terrifying than any confession. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and old secrets. Narrator. I ran, not out of the house, but up, to the one place she had always forbidden me to go, the attic. I shattered the sealed hatch with a hammer. The air was thick with the scent of forgotten decay and cold stone. My light cut through the darkness, and there it was, a form shrouded in a brittle, stained tarp. Every instinct screamed to look away, but my gaze was locked. A human form stood before me, but it was not my father. This figure was ancient, aged by decades of time. The air carried the scent of dry rot and forgotten dust, a stale breath from another era. My muscles locked, a primal recognition of something profoundly wrong. It simply stood, a monument to time I could not comprehend. John's trembling fingers peeled back a corner of the tarp, revealing a glimpse of floral fabric and skeletal hands beneath. Pinned to the decaying dress hung a tarnished locket, catching what little light filtered through the gloom. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like old blood. I recognized that locket instantly. I'd seen it in faded photographs. It was my mother's. From the darkness below, Sarah's voice emerged, hollow and detached. He told us she abandoned us. He said she fled, but I heard them arguing that night. I was just a little girl, hiding right here in this attic. John froze. Sarah clung to the top rung, her face etched with raw grief and simmering fury. He murdered her, John. He killed your mother and sealed her here. Then he lived his entire life in the rooms below. Her body is perfect, hidden atrocity. For John, reality fractured and reassembled in that single, suffocating moment. My father wasn't a grieving widower. He was a murderer. And Sarah, she didn't just want the house. She wanted to expose his crime. The air in the old house grew thick with the scent of decay and hidden truths. Every whispered secret she uncovered tightened a noose of dread around her heart. She'd manipulated me, exploited my inheritance, all to reach this grim moment. to unearth the body and obliterate his legacy. A metallic scent of iron and decay hung thick in the frigid air, the only sound a faint, rhythmic scratching from deep within the darkness. John's voice was a strained whisper, his breath hitching as he took in the scene. All this for revenge? Sarah's reply was cold, final, her words cutting through the oppressive stillness. For justice. He promised me something, and I held onto that promise like a lifeline. But now the truth is yours to carry. So what's your next move, brother? Will you pick up the phone and call the authorities? In the attic's oppressive stillness, John discovered his mother's remains, a secret his ex-fiancee's sister had harbored. The air was thick with the scent of decay and old wood, a palpable weight pressing against his chest. This inheritance was no house. It was a coffin holding two bodies, his mother's and, in a way, his own. A primal dread took hold as he stood frozen between the past's corpse and the present's haunting truth. The life I understood dissolved into ash. Sarah now cradled every secret, every hidden truth. That truth was no longer a memory. It was a weapon, cold and sharp. Outside, the rhythmic flash of police lights painted the attic window in silent, accusing pulses of red and blue. John's silhouette stood frozen, phone clutched in his hand, a call made to someone unknown. Downstairs, Sarah watched the hallway lights flicker, a slow, cryptic smile playing on her lips. Narrator. So I'll ask you the question that haunts me every night. When the truth is a monster, and the lie is the only thing holding your life together, which one do you bury? And which one do you let see the light? The screen fades to absolute black. Text appears in clean, stark white font, based on a compilation of true events. The words hang in the void for a moment, the implications settling in.